Belis Sakan et le
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the signing ceremony. I invite the President and the Prime Minister to offer remarks.
Mr. President, Lorraine and I have great memories of your kind hosting of us in your beautiful country back in 2012. So I'm delighted to have this opportunity to return your hospitality on this your first ever visit to our country, just as it's warming up. So it's very happy here. The Philippines is a regional leader and a designated priority market for Canada. Our government has worked to strengthen this relationship with a special emphasis on trade, security, and people-to-people ties. Bilateral merchandise trade between our two countries was closing in on $2 billion last year. However, President Aquino and I both believe it could be worth much more. Pleased to confirm the signing a few moments ago of our government's intention to launch exploratory discussions towards a trade agreement between Canada and the Philippines. The President and I have also agreed to work towards updating our existing foreign investment promotion and protection agreement. And I'm happy to note that Trade Minister Fass will lead a mission to the Philippines later this month. Canada and the Philippines will also continue to work together to counter terrorism, security threats, and corruption, both regionally and globally. To that end, I'm pleased to announce that the President and I have agreed to a range of security-related measures. Most notably, Canada will provide support to the Philippines' port security to enhance its ability to counter crime and terror-related threats. The Filipino-Canadian community, now about 700,000, has been one of the largest immigration drivers in recent years. In fact, Tagalog is today the most rapidly growing language in our country. Mr. President, it would really be impossible to speak too favorably about Canada's large and vibrant Filipino community. Filipino Canadians adapt to this country very quickly because they exhibit the very best of our shared values. Generous and hardworking, they raise strong families, often supporting loved ones back in the Philippines. And they uphold and promote our shared ideals of freedom, democracy, and justice. We're a stronger and a better country as a result of their presence. Now, Mr. President, I'd like to just say a few words about the disaster that struck the Philippines back in 2013. Typhoon Haiyan, or Yolanda, as you call it. Canadians certainly recall the power of that cyclone and the devastation it wrought. But more than anything, Canadians remember the strength and resilience of the Filipino people. And Canada was there quickly and on a big scale. I'd like to mention in particular the Canadian Red Cross medical teams. The Canadian Red Cross made a tremendous contribution in the Philippines, providing relief to those who were suffering. Significantly, they also provided disaster response training to their Filipino counterparts. Now that disaster has struck Nepal, Canada has again sent the Disaster Assistance Relief Team, the DART, that served us so ably in your country. And again, Mr. President, the Canadian Red Cross medical teams are also present in Nepal. But this time, I'm very proud to tell you, these Red Cross teams now include Filipinos who were trained during Typhoon Haiyan Yolanda. I think this is really a great picture of Canada and the Philippines working together as true partners for good in the world. Once again, in the meantime, Mr. President Benigno, welcome to Canada.
Mr. Prime Minister, please accept my gratitude for the hospitality the people and government of Canada have extended to me and my delegation on my first state visit to your country. The warmth and solidarity you have demonstrated is testament to the truth my mother spoke of 26 years ago, when she came to your shores as the leader of a free Filipino people. Ours is a friendship that is old and tested. Canada was one of the first nations to give recognition to my mother's government, and I am told that the Canadian ambassador to the Philippines at that time was the very first to present his credentials to her. That friendship, which we enjoy, has grown deeper through generations. In the time of need, Canada was there, a partner ready to offer humanitarian assistance to the Philippines. As a concrete example, we saw this in the aftermath of typhoons Haiyan and Glenda. For Haiyan in particular, your government deployed personnel from the Canadian Armed Forces to deliver much-needed aid, provide medical care, and complete construction projects in devastated areas. The work done has helped our local communities to get back on their feet. Canada has likewise never wavered in its commitment to our peace process, and your determination to see a peaceful and prosperous Mindanao, a land of promises fulfilled, is truly encouraging. Meanwhile, Canada's support in helping local governments in the Philippines simplify their processes and implement economic development plans have helped communities maximize their potentials as hubs of growth. Canada is also a partner in fully realizing the capabilities of the Filipino youth in advancing growth. A specific program that demonstrates this is Jumpstart Philippines, which shows immense promise even in its present initial stage. Just last week, I was able to attend one of Jumpstart's forums, which allowed me to see firsthand how this program has helped our Department of Labor and Employment, our local governments, and the private sector actively engage each other in developing the skills of Filipino high school graduates so that they can find jobs at the soonest possible time. Without doubt, the support that Canada has shown through such initiatives merits nothing less than the heartfelt gratitude of my people. Mr. Prime Minister, on behalf of my countrymen, again, I thank you for all of your country's efforts. Today, through this visit, we celebrate that special bond between our peoples and thus aim to broaden the horizon of meaningful opportunities for our citizens in our region. On the economic front, the Philippines expresses its appreciation as regards Canada's offer of assistance to the Canadian Trade and Development Facility, which enables our small and medium enterprises to better access the Canadian market. We also look forward to the commencement of exploratory discussions on a possible free trade agreement, the review of our bilateral investment agreement, and the convening of the Joint Working Group on Economic Trade and Investment. Such steps will indeed redound to the benefit of our respective economies and societies. We also look forward to sharing with the Prime Minister the prospects for growth in the Philippines, particularly in our public-private partnerships infrastructure sector program, where Canadian investors may wish to capitalize on. I believe our friends in the Canadian business community will find delight in knowing that Canada has designated the Philippines as a priority emerging market. And I speak for my countrymen in saying that we are extremely eager to work with you in making trade and investment activity between our nations more fun, more inclusive, and ultimately more beneficial for all parties. As APEC economies, Canada and the Philippines share the belief that in an era of rapid development, a unified determination with regard to each other's growth is a key if we truly wish to sustain, if not just build on our momentum. The Mutual Accountability Framework, which was signed earlier, sets in stone our shared desire to support broad-based and sustainable economic growth in the Philippines. This goes hand in hand with Canada's decision to name the Philippines as a country of focus for development assistance, for which we are also truly grateful. And just as we work to improve the lives of countrymen at home, we also work to improve the plight of Filipinos living and working here in Canada. In Vancouver, we will sign a memorandum of understanding as regards human resource deployment and development in the province of British Columbia. We also welcome the conclusion of a bilateral instrument on occupational safety and health, witnessed earlier, which strengthens labor cooperation between our two nations. Finally, we wish to express the Philippines' appreciation for the position taken by the G7 Foreign Ministers' Declaration on Maritime Security this year. We welcome the growing consensus across the international community that a rules-based approach must be observed in managing maritime disputes in the sea to the west of my country, a sea that is known by many names. It is in our interest to uphold the freedom of navigation and overflight in the South China Sea, a region that is of vital importance not only to Southeast Asia, but also the rest of the global community. Prime Minister Harper, I do not exaggerate when I say that the Philippines is grateful to have Canada as a reliable friend and partner. It is our belief that as neighbors connected to the Pacific, our two nations can achieve so much more by standing shoulder to shoulder on the path of inclusiveness, openness, and cooperation. I believe we can harness the full potential of this partnership for the benefit of our peoples, our region, and the generations to come. Thank you.
français et en anglais si c'est possible. Alors, depuis quelques semaines, votre gouvernement ajoute le prénom musulman Ahmed au nom de Omar Kader, un Ahmed qui n'avait jamais été utilisé auparavant. Que répondez-vous à ceux qui voient la preuve, comme le dit l'avocat de M. Kader, que vous êtes dans toute cette histoire motivé par l'islamophobie? Et en sous-question, hier, votre ministre Blaney a dit que l'idéologie de M. Kader n'avait pas changé. Sur quoi vous appuyez-vous pour dire ça? Est-ce que vous croyez aux chances de réhabilitation de M. Kader?
De façon que M. Kader a plaidé coupable à des crimes graves, y compris le meurtre, évidemment, nos pensées, nos prières sont avec la famille de sergent Christopher Spear dans ces moments difficiles. Le gouvernement va toujours comme sa priorité la protection et la sécurité de la population canadienne. Mais il y a certaines questions qui restent devant les tribunaux et je ne vais pas faire un commentaire additionnel. So just to repeat the facts of the situation, Mr. Cotter, as we all know, pled guilty to very grave crimes, including murder. At this time, our thoughts and prayers are with the family of Sergeant Christopher Spear. Our government's priority in these matters is always to make sure, first and foremost, we keep in mind the protection and security of the Canadian population. Beyond that, there are some issues that are still before the courts, and I'm not going to comment on anything beyond that.
Following the election victory of Rachel Notley in your home province of Alberta, I'm wondering what political lessons can be learned from it from your perspective as we head into a fall election? And President Aquino, a question to you. One of the biggest irritants, as you know, by Canadians of Filipino descent who are living here, the fact that their credentials are not recognized. Many are scientists or engineers, but they're in Canada's cities driving taxi cabs or working in a kitchen. I'm wondering, how do you approach the Prime Minister to possibly resolve this issue, and what do you hope will be achieved?
Okay, let me actually answer both questions since they're on Canadian government policy. On the first one, let me just say, I didn't comment on the Alberta election and didn't get involved in it while it was going on, so I would see no reason to do so now. Other than to say that, I think that all people who occupy the responsibility of office inevitably have certain shared priorities, and I look forward to working with new Premier Notley on joint priorities and finding some common ground on some issues where we can both be of assistance to Albertans and to Canadians more widely. On the issue of foreign credential recognition, as you know, this has been a significant preoccupation of our government since we came to office. Back in 2006, obviously the federal government's levers to deal with this are limited because we are not the government principally responsible for credentials recognition, but we have been trying to find ways to improve the process through the immigration system, but also through things like providing loans for people to be able to undertake short-term training that would help them get those credentials recognized, but it remains an ongoing challenge that you have identified. Juste encore une fois, pour l'élection en Alberta, j'ai décidé de ne pas m'ingérer dans cette élection pendant l'élection et je n'ai pas la raison de le faire maintenant. Juste pour dire que je pense que tous les gens avec la responsabilité de pouvoir ont invariablement certaines priorités partagées. J'attends avec impatience de trouver avec la nouvelle Première ministre pour m'adresser à des objectifs partagés. J'espère que nous trouverons des façons de faire ensemble pour améliorer la qualité de vie des Albertains et des Canadiens en général. Pour la question de la reconnaissance des compétences des nouveaux Canadiens, ça reste une priorité pour nous depuis notre arrivée en fonction en 2006. Évidemment, le fédéral n'est pas le gouvernement principalement responsable pour la reconnaissance des compétences, ça crée une difficulté. Nous travaillons avec les provinces, nous avons fait certains changements à l'immigration pour aider ça et plus particulièrement nous donnons de l'aide aux immigrants pour faire des courses faire des études, pour atteindre des compétences plus rapidement qu'avant. Mais il y a encore le travail à faire.
From our end, upon discovering the problem of this question of credentials, we have undertaken a lot of reforms, to include reforms even in the basic education portion. Upon entering office, we found out that we were one of the last 3 countries to have a 10-year basic education program. This will be fully transitioned to what we call the K-12 program, or 12-year basic education program, starting next year. We are in the process of completing all of the facilities, recruitment of teachers, and all the auxiliaries to make the plus 2 years work starting by next year. Now, having said that, we are cognizant of the fact that this lack of 1 year or 2 years in the education program is a cause of concern, not only in Canada but in other areas. So we have been addressing that situation to include even a review of the training program, for instance, for our seafarers, cognizant again of the fact that between a third to a fourth of all seafarers are of Filipino descent. We want to ensure that there is no question as to their credentials, which meant a review even of the training institutions, the certification or the testing facilities of the various government entities, the consolidation of all of these functions into one government entity as opposed to several that existed before. We cannot say that we've finished the process. It is a work in progress, but we are responding in a responsible manner to valid concerns expressed by so many other parties around the world. Thank you.
My question is for both leaders, but first for Prime Minister Harper. There is grave concern among the Filipino community here on the status of temporary foreign workers. We understand that thousands have flown back home because their visas have expired. We understand that there is a backlog in the processing of permanent residency applications, and there is also a 4-year term limit which is perceived as discriminatory, 4-year term limit on temporary foreign workers. So we would like to know what is being done to resolve this issue, and for President Aquino, we would like to know if you raised this issue as well on behalf of Filipinos here in your talks with the Prime Minister.
Yeah, let me just first of all clarify the big picture here, which is that the Philippines is one of the government's largest source countries, not simply for temporary foreign workers, but far more importantly, for permanent immigration to this country. And this is a pro-immigration government, and we anticipate those numbers, those immigration numbers from the Philippines will remain strong and will continue to grow into the future. You're asking about difficulties we've had in a particular program. And let me just be clear about what the government is doing with that program, what its objectives are. We're making sure, first of all, obviously, that immigrants are not filling jobs for which Canadians could be hired. That's come up in some cases. But just as importantly, we are making sure that when people come to this country to work and to work long-term, they have the ability to move towards being permanent citizens of this country. This country is not going to have a policy, as long as I'm Prime Minister, where we will have a permanent underclass of temporary people who are so-called temporary, but here forever, with no rights of citizenship and no rights of mobility. That's not the Canadian way we do immigration. So we're going to make sure that that program does not drift in that direction.
I think the record speaks for itself. We have one of the largest growing communities anywhere outside of the Philippines of Filipinos. That wouldn't happen if they weren't happy or they were so filled with anxiety. But having said that, the briefer I got today talks about a distinction between skilled and unskilled workers. And since most of our countrymen who are here are of the skilled variety, then that provision that you cited seems to not be applicable, if I understood my briefers correctly this morning. Now, again, we'd like to thank Prime Minister Harper and his government for this, for the public announcement of the idea of not having second-class citizens who are contributing to the welfare of Canada and its economy. So, again, I think that policy should be helped rather than hindered in our itself. Thank you.
My question is for Prime Minister Harper first. May we know what Canada's position is with regard to the territorial dispute between the Philippines and China over the West Philippine Sea or the South China Sea, and if this was included in your discussion with our President? And for President Aquino, may we know how can we stop China from undertaking their aggressive reclamation activities in our territorial waters? And if ITLOS or the International Tribunal sides with our arbitration case, how can we pressure the international community, or how can we ask the international community to pressure China from desisting their activities in the West Philippine Sea?
Just briefly, I guess I should start this by saying that typically Canada does not take positions on these maritime territorial disputes per se. What I would say is this, however, that there should not be provocative and unilateral actions in this regard, that all parties should respect international responsibilities and any international rulings on the matter. And President Aquino certainly raised this issue with me, and we've discussed it in the past, and we certainly are very appreciative of the fact that he has handled this difficult issue very prudently and very responsibly. I think we should all recognize that.
Let's go back to the start of the problem. Every party, every claimant with, on the features of located in the South China Sea, the West Philippine Sea, say they are all conforming to international law. Now, whose theory is correct? Is China's theory of UNCLOS plus the historical claims valid? Is our claim of entitlements under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea valid? ITLOS's decision will clarify the situation, and therefore, once clarified, then everybody who says that they are conforming to international will therefore have to make their decisions and make their activities consistent with the findings of this international tribunal. Now, having said that, are there any other ways that we can persuade other countries? Once there is a determination or a clarification of exactly how UNCLOS applies to this particular case, then there is clarity, and therefore the clarity comes with it a basis of interaction for all parties concerned. Are there any other things that we can do? Yes, but I'm not at liberty to tell you at this point in time, because I will probably just be advertising to the other side how to counter the next move that we have, which I think is imprudent on our behalf. But as soon as we get back, which is in probably not more than 3 days from now, there is a scheduled meeting to discuss this next avenue of approach. But at the end of the day, let me reiterate, the Philippines, I think, has been consistent with the principles enumerated in the Declaration of Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea, which was crafted and drafted in 2002, which came about because of the failure to come up with a code of conduct. We have refrained from escalating tensions in the situation. We have, I think, religiously and scrupulously abided by all the terms in that commission. Perhaps certain quarters are resentful of the fact that we reminded everybody that in 2012 in particular, the 10th anniversary had passed of the failure to come up with a code of conduct, and there was still no movement, and that was the start in the following year of some tentative steps towards the crafting of the code of conduct. We're hoping that everybody's entitlements and obligations are clarified so that there is stability that is induced in the region, which is a necessary precondition for everybody's prosperity, which I think all governments in the area are aspiring for their people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Merci.